You are now watching Surveillance. Donate or subscribe for more sick twists.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we got another video coming at you. This time we're talking about Tiny Abomination in a Jar. We got some paladins who got it on the PTR, and we have been testing it, and we have basically confirmed that it works exactly as we expected it to. We have a list here of all the different proc sources that proc the emotes, and we have confirmed basically all of them. So this stuff has already been updated in the sim, so you guys can go ahead and hop on the sim and start testing out the DPS numbers. Also, we'll talk about later in the video, but we have a solution for the Mana Crisis. And later in the video, also, we have some Shadowmourne sims that we can share with you based on all this new simming data. So let's get started. Alright, so Tiny Abomination in a Jar is this trinket that has always been historically really good for Ret Paladin in ICC, because when it swings, it procs our seals, and because we are able to stack it a lot faster than most other classes. Now, through all the different data gathering and like looking through old forum posts to see what all it procs from, we gathered basically this list a few months ago of all the suspected proc chances or proc sources that the trinket will have. Now, when the trinket procs, it gives you a Mote of Anger, and when you get 7 motes, you get a Manifest Anger swing, which is like a melee attack that does half of your weapon damage. Now, the heroic version only needs 7 motes, while the normal version needs 8. So as we go through the list, you guys can see it procs off all of these things. Seal of Vengeance damage, Seal of Vengeance debuff application, that's the rolling dot. Crusader Strike damage, Divine Storm damage, Righteous Vengeance debuff application, Judgment debuff application, that is the mana debuff, not the Heart of the Crusader. Auto attack, Hammer of Wrath, and now the single target Hammer of Wrath gets up to 3 procs for Seal of Vengeance, but only 1 for SOC, because Seal of Command is confirmed to not proc any motes. And honestly, that's probably a good thing, because it would be kind of insane if it did. Like, imagine, you know, cleaving 3 mobs with your Seal of Command, and then you get 3 chances to proc a mote. That's pretty insane. So also, Vindication and Heart of the Crusader will not proc motes. So one thing you might notice from this list is this sounds like it might be really good for Prot Paladin, and you'd probably be right. I'm pretty sure this trinket is going to be really stellar for Prot Paladin and give them a lot of threat. Because a lot of their abilities also apply Seal of Vengeance debuff, they're going to have a ton of chances to get it going. So after testing this, and confirming all these different proc sources, we managed to update the sim, and overnight we gained a ton of DPS, over 1,000 I believe. Our Shadowmourne sims went up, all of our damage went up. Now there's something really important to note here. So when we got our Ret Paladin buffs back in Phase 2, and they changed Seal of Vengeance to apply a stack when you Crusader Strike or Divine Storm, that is indirectly buffing Tiny Abomination in a Jar trinket, and it's going to cause it to do a little bit more damage. So some portion of the amount of damage we gained on the sim is from that. Now, the Seal of Vengeance change, it just gives us 1 extra chance to proc on our Crusader Strikes and our Divine Storms, but only when we're in Seal of Vengeance. A much bigger portion of the DPS that we gained is from adding the other proc sources and just modeling the trinket correctly as it was supposed to be modeled in the first place. For example, we were missing Righteous Vengeance debuff application, Judgment debuff application, Hammer of Wrath. I mean, even just the Seal of Vengeance dots that you can stack from auto-attacking, even that stuff wasn't on the sim beforehand. I think Judgment damage also wasn't modeled properly. So these are all different proc sources that were not on the sim beforehand, and have nothing to do with the Seal of Vengeance changes, and also would have helped us do a ton of damage with Tiny Abomination in a Jar. So before the PTR came out, you know, people that worked on the sim, they wanted to keep it conservative. I totally understand that. So they didn't want to add proc sources just based on forum posts from elitist jerks. They wanted to wait until we had some actual testing, and I totally get that. So because of that, you know, the trinket always underperformed on the sim, even despite the SOV stuff. So I think some people might have gotten a mistaken impression of how strong it's supposed to be based on that. Alright, so now if you pull up the sim, best in slot sim for Phase 4 for Ret Paladin, here's what our damage looks like now. As you can see, we gained quite a lot. We are now sitting at 16.5k DPS. This is on 180 seconds. And if you want to test Tiny Abomination in a Jar against Deathbringer's Will, this is what you end up with. As you can see, it's a pretty insane 1261 DPS over a 277 trinket from ICC, which is crazy. So if you guys pull up my projections sheet for ICC, which by the way, if you guys want to check it out, link in the description, I have all the different classes and their best simmed sets for phase 4 and phase 5, different kill times, all kinds of stuff on there. You guys are gonna love it. I put a ton of work into it. I've been updating it all the time. I got a ton of really smart people helping me on it, so it's great. So after updating the sim to properly model the trinket, you can see that Ret is now properly in its place at the top of the charts, just a little bit behind, you know, the very, very top DPS, but still a very respectable spot. Now, if we lost a couple hundred DPS from the Seal of Vengeance thing being reverted, or if we lost the 1100 DPS that we get from having Hand of Reckoning, we actually wouldn't be in a very good spot. We would be at the low 15,000s for our DPS, which puts us pretty much in the middle, or lower than the middle. Now, if you took away Shadowmourne on top of all that, you'd probably end up at the top of this list at the bottom of the charts, honestly. I mean, if you're already at 15,000 or a little bit above it and you take away the 1,000 DPS or so that you're going to get from Shadowmourne, I mean, it's looking pretty bad. So I'm honestly very happy with where we are. I don't think we're too OP or going to be too OP. I don't think there's really anything to be worried about in that regard, but I think it's very respectable where we are now, and I don't think we need to adjust it at all. So thanks to the sim getting updated, we now have some Shadowmourne sims. I don't currently have any cleave sims for DKs, but they're coming soon, I promise. I'm still figuring out how we're going to do that. Basically, I just, you know, I had some help from some other people, and we simmed every class the best possible Shadowmourne set versus the best possible non-Shadowmourne set. These numbers could still adjust in the future, but I'm pretty confident with where they are now, barring any new sim changes. Now, if we find out that Shadowmourne works differently than it does on the sim, this could always change in the future with some testing. I'll keep you guys updated on that if that becomes a thing. But, you know, I think it's not going to change a whole lot from where it is now. So as you can see, Retribution getting the most from single target on the sim, and Fury Warrior getting the most from cleave. Now, I kind of expected Fury Warrior to do better on cleave. They're just kind of a better cleave class than we are. So I think that's a good thing, honestly, that they get more on cleave. It's like pros and cons. If you want to speed run it, if you want to have like the best cleave damage, then you'd go with Fury. Or if you want to have the best single target damage, you could go to Retribution, that kind of thing. But I think with the new changes to the Shadowmourne questline, I don't think people should really argue that much about SM Prio anymore, because the people that are waiting in line second, or maybe even third, are probably still going to get their Shadowmourne, and they're not going to have to pay a bunch of money for it. So I think we can all celebrate that. And I don't think we should be arguing too much about SM Prio anymore because of that. Now, canceling your Chaos Bane buff with Shadowmourne is now going to be a DPS gain on single target. It's like a little bit under 100 DPS, but on cleave, it's still a DPS loss. And that's all because of TAJ working properly on the sim now. Now we can see that Cancelaura is in fact a DPS gain now that the trinket is modeled properly. You just might want to have like separate bars for cleave that don't have the Cancelaura in your macros. That way you don't Cancelaura on cleave and end up screwing yourself out of some DPS. Now, the one thing I was really concerned about with this is seal priority. Because Seal of Vengeance responds so much better to Tiny Abomination Jar and just has like more proc chances, I was worried about, you know, certain scenarios where Seal of Vengeance might be better than Seal of Command, even if you're cleaving, but luckily the sim doesn't really think so. The only situation that changed now is 2 targets, which doesn't really exist as far as I know. But if you had a 2 target encounter or, you know, crash pack that lasts for 30 seconds or more, you would want to go Seal of Vengeance now instead of Seal of Command. But otherwise, Seal of Command is still going to be best for cleaving, so don't worry. And if you guys haven't heard about those changes to the Shadowmourne questline, check out my last video on that topic. Now, you might be thinking, who else uses this trinket? And I think it's pretty safe to say that it's Retribution Prio, just because we are getting way more damage than anybody else, as far as I can tell. But Prot Paladins will also probably want this trinket. It's going to be best threat trinket for them, I'm pretty sure, because they can also stack it really fast with Seal of Vengeance. That's applied by most of their main abilities. And I believe Assassination Rogue will also use this, although it's probably going to be a lot smaller of a DPS gain for them. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk to you guys about today is the Mana Crisis. I'm pretty sure that we have solved the Mana Crisis, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to sim your gear without going out of mana. So, we have been working on an APL rotation, which is a more advanced way of doing the rotation logic, and this is what it looks like so far. But for right now, since the APL is not fully optimized, we're going to stick with the legacy rotation for now, just until we get the APL done, and then once it's done, I will add a preset for it to the sim so you guys can just load it up. So for now, you're going to want to use the legacy rotation, and it's going to look like this. You're going to want to add Divine Plea into your list of spell priority spells, okay? Otherwise, it's only going to cast Divine Plea on the pull, which is not what you want. Now, don't pay too much attention to the order of the DPS spells here. I don't know if this is going to be the best prio in ICC or not. I'm only showing this to you for the Divine Plea portion, okay? So this could still be, like, this might not be our best rotation in ICC, okay? We'll talk about that in a future video and in the Phase 4 document, which, by the way, is being created right now and should be out in, like, a week or two. So this is going to allow you to go a lot longer without going It's going to cast Divine Plea more. Now, before we figured this out, you know, we were doing stuff like adding innervates and stuff, but you don't have to do that anymore to sidestep the issue. Now, it will cost you a small amount of DPS because there's going to be globals where you Divine Plea over Exorcism, etc. So it's just a very small DPS loss to do that, but we all do that anyway when we play the game, so it's more accurate to sim it that way anyway. Now, you can also change the Divine Plea mana threshold to change basically, if you're under that threshold, that's when it will cast Divine Plea. If you're over the threshold, it will not cast Divine Plea. So you can also mess around with that. Now, if you go out to 4 or 5 minutes, you're still going to have an issue with mana. So to fix that, you're just going to delete Holy Wrath. That's the first thing that's going to go. If you just delete Holy Wrath for those longer sims, 4 or 5 minutes, you're going to gain DPS because you're not going to go And that's just basically what we're going to have to do, is we're going to have to cut Holy Wrath out of the rotation when mana is tight. But it largely looks like the Sim Mana Crisis was just that, a Sim Mana Crisis, and it was not really affecting us in-game because we were using Divine Plea a lot more than the Sim was. So I wouldn't worry from an in-game perspective. Your mana is probably going to be fine in-game in ICC. When I did ICC, it really was not an issue, but I think you guys are going to find that mana is really not that bad. So for now, anyway, it seems like this was a sim-specific issue, and mana won't be that bad in ICC. You don't have to worry too much about using mana pots and things of that nature, or Dark Rune. Now, you're going to want to keep Divine Plea above Exorcism and Holy Wrath, or it's just not going to get cast enough. So just to double check that you're not going go over to the Results tab, and just double check here in the top right corner how many seconds you went for. If it's really small, like 4 seconds, it's probably fine. But you just, you know, if you can avoid going obviously it's better. So double check in here that you aren't going when you sim your gear, because if you are going stuff that has intellect, stuff that helps you conserve your mana is going to sim way better, and it's going to throw off all your results. So just double check on that when you guys sim, and you'll be a-okay. And if you want a full breakdown of all the different mana uses and mana gains over the whole fight, you can go into the Resources tab. You can also click on Timeline, and you can see exactly what your mana was like throughout the fight, which is really, really helpful. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover today. I'm so glad that you guys joined me for this quick little video, and I'm really happy with where Retribution is and is going to be in ICC. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that it's too powerful? Do you think that Seal of Vengeance should be changed back to the way it was before? Do you think that Ret is going to be too strong? Just let me know what you think in the comments. I personally think we're in a good spot, and I think we should stay where we are exactly right now. But let me know what you think. I just want to give a quick shout out here to all the people that helped me with this. Shadowsong, really great guy, helped us figure out all these different proc sources. Mahabaja and Nutclopper, those two guys got Tiny Abomination Jar and were so helpful to come into the Discord and stream and help us test different things. And also a big shout out to Boatsy, who helped us find out that Seal of Command does not proc TAJ. And also a huge, huge thanks to Dux and everybody who works on WoW Sims in general. Pookpong, you guys are great. Thank you so much for spending your time developing the sim for us. I really appreciate all the work. I don't know everybody who works on the sim, so I'm probably missing some names here. But I know that Dux is the one who fixed Tiny Abomination Jar on the sim, so big shout out to him.